After the presentation by Bruno, which gave you an overview of the world food economy, I will now turn to the two scenarios we have developed. We named the first scenario Agrimonde 1. In this scenario, the world in 2050 is characterized by sustainability. Sustainable development means here a drastic reduction of both undernourishment and excessive calorie intake, and for farming system, a move toward ecological intensification. It means that agriculture will have to meet three challenges. One, to meet growing needs. Two, to be a driving force of development. And three, to be respectful of the environment. We chose to build a second scenario by adapting global orchestration, which is one of the scenarios developed by the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, the international assessment of the ecosystems. We chose global orchestration because it's a trend-based scenario which provides a good reference point. In this scenario, technological advances are very fast, trade is further liberalized, but the preservation of the environment is not a priority. We named this scenario Agrimonde GO. I won't enter into the details of our assumptions except for diets, because Agrimonde GO and Agrimonde 1 show very contrasting patterns as shown on the slide. For Agrimonde GO, economic growth explains consumption trends. As you can see on the graph, the red line represents per capita consumption at the global level. In Agrimonde 1, in 2050, the per capita food consumption at the global level will be roughly the same as today, but unlike today, it will be equal in all regions. It means a reduction of 25% of food consumption in OECD and an increase by 30% in sub-Saharan Africa between 2000 and 2050. I will now turn to the complete and worldwide scenarios. In both scenarios, the world population will have increased by almost 50% between 2000 and 2050. Per capita food consumption will have increased by 20% in Agrimonde GO, with a share of food from animal increasing from 16 to 23%. In contrast, per capita food consumption and the animal share will have been stable in Agrimonde 1. On the resource side, cultivated land will have increased much faster in Agrimonde 1, with 12 million hectares of new cultivated land per year, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and in Latin America, compared to a growth of 7 million per year in Agrimonde GO. In Agrimonde 1, land conversion to food crop has been the principal means of increasing production. In contrast, in Agrimonde GO, yields have been the main driving factor. The increase in yield in this scenario has been very fast, plus 1.14% per year over 50 years, against 0.14% in Agrimonde 1. What is the output of these evolutions in terms of resource use balance? In both scenarios, food resources meet needs in 2050, but three regions remain net importers of food calories: Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, North Africa, and Asia. I'd like now to highlight the main conclusions we can draw from this scenario building. First conclusion: in 2050, as it is today, the main challenge behind food security won't be a question of lack of production, but will remain a problem of access to food by the poorest populations. The planet can properly feed 9 billion people in 2050. But the way it will do it regarding sustainability criteria will greatly depend on what is on our plates and what is lost before and after reaching our plates. Our second conclusion is then that diets and consumption patterns, including the amount of food we waste, are key determinants of resource use balances. In Agrimonde Geo, the increase of 20% of per capita food consumption implies an increase by 85% of the total plant production. In Agrimonde 1, where per capita consumption remains stable at the global level, the increase in production is limited to 30%. These figures can be compared to the one that the FAO proposed in 2009, with the expectation that food production will have to increase by 70% by 2050. Third conclusion, food trade can secure regional food needs. The rationale behind this result is twofold. Firstly, natural resources are not distributed in the same way as human population, and this is especially true for Middle East, North Africa, and for Asia, which have limited production potential. Secondly, trade can secure regional food needs because development takes time, and it's especially true for sub-Saharan Africa. Food trade is necessary to secure regional food needs on two conditions. One, a fair and secure trade regulation systems must be established, combined with environmental regulation. Two, local opportunities of wealth creation must be developed in order to guarantee access to food, and in many developing countries, these opportunities are mainly to be found in agriculture. Thus, our fourth conclusion is that present and future investments in agriculture in developing countries will have a dramatic impact on food balances and on our ability to end undernourishment. This conclusion is particularly strong for Africa, which will experience the steepest increase in population by 2050. Fifth conclusion. To be sustainable, Agrimonde 1 requires radical innovations in farming systems. These innovations will be necessary to maintain yields while using much less chemical fertilizers or pesticides in regions such as OECD or Asia. They will be necessary to increase yields in spite of climate change in regions such as Middle East, North Africa, or Latin America. These innovations are also required to overcome biodiversity loss and GHG emissions caused by large land conversion. Whatever happens, Agrimonde 1 is not a scenario of return to archaic agriculture. It's a scenario of radical innovations, and these innovations in science and technology are strongly related to innovations in spatial and social organization. For instance, agroforestry, which mixes forest and crop, may be developed to limit biodiversity loss and to optimize water management. As for social change, farmers in Agrimonde 1 are remunerated for the goods they produce, but also for maintaining ecosystem services such as landscape, water resource regulation, carbon storage, biodiversity, etc. As a final conclusion, the 70% increase in food production put forward by the FAO is a business as usual scenario. As our study shows, other scenarios are possible and must be explored, since levels of change exist to act on our diets and consumption patterns, on production through investment and innovation, and on trade through regulations. Thank you for your attention.